The PlayStation 2 was an RPG powerhouse, but for every big-budget hit, there were countless experiments that slipped quietly under the radar. Some mixed genres, others took wild mechanical risks, and many simply arrived at the wrong time to find an audience. These hidden gems might not have the polish of the era's blockbusters, but they brim with creativity and ideas that feel fresh even today. When Grandia Extreme launched in 2002, it surprised longtime fans of the series. Instead of another sweeping, story-driven journey, Game Arts pivoted toward a more combat-focused dungeon crawler. The result was a streamlined, almost experimental spin-off that emphasized its excellent battle system above all else. The Grandia series was always known for dynamic turn-based combat that blended real-time movement with strategic command input and extreme double down. Fights are fast and flashy, with a timing-based initiative point IP gauge that rewards clever positioning and interrupts. Party synergy matters more than ever. Coordinating moves to cancel enemy actions or unleash devastating combo attacks feels incredibly satisfying, especially against the game's tough bosses. Story takes a back seat. You guide a small team of explorers through elemental-themed dungeons to stop a natural disaster. But narrative beats are sparse and characters stay fairly one-note. Instead, progression revolves around mastering combat and hunting for loot, with a structure closer to a roguelike than a traditional JRPG. Randomized dungeon layouts and frequent battles push you to refine tactics and manage resources rather than chase cutscenes. At launch, critics were divided. Some praised the crisp battle mechanics. Others found the repetition and thin plot underwhelming, especially compared to grander PS2 RPGs arriving at the time. But in hindsight, that laser focus is what makes Grandia Extreme intriguing. It's almost a proof of concept for a pure combat RPG. Lean, challenging, and deeply replayable. For players who love fine-tuned turn-based systems and don't mind a minimal story, this overlooked entry is a hidden treasure in the PS2 library. Released in 2005 by Atlas, Stella Deus: The Gate of Eternity quietly delivered one of the PlayStation 2's most thoughtful tactical RPGs. At a glance, it resembles FF Tactics, isometric grids, turn-based strategy, and a fantasy world teetering on the brink of collapse. But it carves its own identity through atmospheric storytelling and careful, deliberate design. Set in a dying world smothered by the mysterious miasma, the narrative follows mercenary Spiro and a small band of companions as they seek a way to survive the encroaching void. Rather than bombastic cutscenes, it unfolds through understated conversations and philosophical themes. Faith versus pragmatism, the cost of survival, and how people respond when the end seems inevitable. Its quiet tone is surprisingly mature, giving the game a reflective mood that stands apart from the high drama typical of the era. Combat is precise and rewarding. Battles use a turn-based time point system where every action, movement, attacks, skills consumes points, forcing you to think several moves ahead. Positioning and team synergy are key, and enemy AI punishes sloppy play. It's slower paced than many SRPGs, but each encounter feels deliberate and tense. Presentation reinforces its meditative vibe. The painterly art style, supervised by renowned artist Shigenori Soejima, bathes the world in muted, almost watercolor tones. The orchestral score adds emotional weight without overwhelming the quiet storytelling. These elements combine to create a melancholic yet beautiful atmosphere. Despite these strengths, it slipped under the radar. Released late in the PS2's life and marketed modestly, it never achieved the cult status of Atlas's Shin Megami Tensei titles. Some players found its pacing slow and its plot too understated compared to flashier RPGs. Yet for fans of tactical RPGs who appreciate careful strategy and a contemplative narrative, Stella Deus remains a hidden gem. By the time Shadow Hearts from a New World arrived in 2005, the series had already carved out a reputation for dark, offbeat storytelling and inventive combat. Yet this third main entry struggled to capture the same attention as its predecessors. partly because it shifted away from the brooding gothic horror of Covenant toward a brighter, more adventurous tone. While some longtime fans miss the gloom, the game remains an imaginative, underrated JRPG that's worth rediscovering. Set in an alternate 1920s America, this follows young Detective Johnny Garland and a motley crew, including a Native American warrior, a Mexican luchador, and a shape-shifting cat girl, on a cross-country journey that mixes supernatural mysteries with pulp adventure. This vibrant road trip vibe gives the series' trademark weirdness a new flavor, blending Lovecraftian horror with jazz-era Americana. The battle system remains a highlight. The series' signature Judgment Ring, an interactive timing wheel for attacks, magic, and combos, returns with refinements that keep turn-based combat fast and engaging. Each character has distinct abilities, from wrestling moves to spiritual transformations, encouraging creative party setups. Side quests and optional bosses add depth for players who want a challenge beyond the main story. Where it falters is in expectations. Fans hoping for the heavy, emotional punch of Covenant sometimes found the lighter, more comedic tone jarring. The plot, while fun, doesn't reach the same emotional peaks, and some characters lean into broad stereotypes that haven't aged perfectly. The visuals, though charming, were also modest compared to the PS2's late-generation showcases. Still, From a New World shines when judged on its own terms. It may not match the critical heights of its predecessor, but it embodies the series' willingness to experiment with setting and tone. When Unlimited Saga launched in 2003, even longtime fans of Square Enix's Saga series weren't sure what to make of it. Marketed as a bold evolution of the franchise, it turned out to be one of the most experimental and divisive RPGs on the PS2. Instead of a traditional open-world JRPG with predictable progression, it mixes tabletop-style exploration, heavy randomness, and complex growth systems into something that feels more like a digital board game than a standard console RPG. Players choose from 7 protagonists, each with unique storylines that intersect only loosely. You move across maps that look like illustrated game boards, advancing space by space while encountering traps, events, and enemies. Combat uses the Real system, a slot machine-style mechanic where timed button presses determine the success of attacks and skills. Character growth is equally unconventional. Instead of traditional experience points, abilities improve through a system of random panels awarded after battles. These panels influence stats, weapon proficiencies, and even exploration abilities like lockpicking or swimming. Building a strong party becomes a mix of planning and luck. The art direction is gorgeous. Illustrated backgrounds, watercolor-style towns, and striking character portraits give it a unique, almost storybook aesthetic. The soundtrack mixes orchestral pieces with jazzy undertones and adds to the dreamlike atmosphere, making every encounter feel like a page from an art book. But the game asks a lot of its audience. Tutorials barely explain its labyrinthine systems, and early hours can feel opaque or punishing. Some admired its ambition. Many others found it needlessly obtuse and punishing. It's the epitome of a love it or hate it RPG. For players willing to brave its steep learning curve, Unlimited Saga offers a singular experience that rewards curiosity and perseverance. An RPG that feels as much like an experimental board game as a digital adventure. Ring of Red is one of the most distinctive tactical RPGs on the PS2, a fascinating blend of alternate history storytelling and mech-based strategy. Set in a post-World War II timeline where Japan is divided between East and West, the game imagines a Cold War fought with diesel-powered mechs called armored fighting walkers. You command a squad of pilots through a tense campaign where politics and mechanized warfare collide. Gameplay mixes turn-based strategy on a grid map with real-time shooting sequences. You move units across the battlefield, manage supply lines, and then zoom into first-person encounters when AFWs clash. During these skirmishes, you directly aim and fire massive cannons, factoring in wind, range, and reload times. This dual-layered combat system keeps battles engaging, demanding both high-level planning and hands-on action. Each AFW can be outfitted with different weapons, armor, and support teams, allowing for a variety of tactical approaches. Balancing long-range artillery with close combat specialists encourages creative strategies and gives each encounter a distinct rhythm. The game rewards careful positioning and resource management, making victories feel earned. Its gritty alt-history narrative stands out too. This embraces a grounded military aesthetic, exploring themes of occupation, loyalty, and the moral compromises of war. Characters are well written, and their personal stakes lend emotional weight to the political conflict. Despite its innovation, it never gained mainstream traction. Early PS2 audiences were still discovering the console, and its slower pace and complex mechanics may have intimidated players expecting straightforward action. Yet 2 decades later, Ring of Red remains a one-of-a-kind strategy RPG. Its combination of tense tactical play, immersive mech battles, and an unusually mature setting makes it a forgotten standout in the PS2 library, a must-try for fans of both strategy and mecha lore. If you've ever wished the PS2 had its own take on Majora's Mask's time loop concept, Ephemeral Fantasia might be the hidden gem you never knew existed. Released in 2000 as an early title for the console, this quirky RPG drops you onto the island of Panjul just as a grand wedding festival begins. You play as a wandering musician who discovers the celebration is trapped in a 5-day time loop. When the 5th night ends, time resets, and only you remember, forcing you to relive the same festival until you unravel the mystery and break the cycle. The time loop mechanic drives everything. Characters follow strict daily schedules, and you must learn their routines to trigger side quests, uncover clues, and recruit party members. One loop might be spent tailing a suspicious noble, another devoted to helping villagers with odd jobs to earn trust. Exploration feels alive because the island's inhabitants react differently depending on when and how you interact with them. Combat and progression are more traditional, turn-based battles, character growth through experience, and equipment upgrades. Yet even here, the time system matters. Missing a recruitment window might mean waiting an entire loop to try again, and some dungeons only open at specific hours. The game encourages planning across multiple cycles, adding a layer of strategy rare in JRPGs of its era. Unfortunately, it was rough around the edges. Early PS2 hardware meant uneven visuals, while lengthy load times tested patience. The localization is functional but stiff, and the combat, while serviceable, lacks the depth of its structural ideas. These kept it from mainstream success. But for players willing to embrace its quirks, Ephemeral Fantasia offers a singular experience, a small, clockwork world where every loop brings new discoveries. It's a game about patterns, persistence, and the quiet thrill of piecing together a mystery one reset at a time. Released in 2008 near the end of the PlayStation 2's long life, Eternal Poison, known as Poison Pink in Japan, was easy to miss. By then, the gaming world had shifted to the 7th-gen consoles, and this dark, gothic tactical RPG from Atlas arrived with little fanfare. Those who did find it discovered a slow-burning, atmospheric adventure that fused classic grid-based strategy with haunting art direction and a heavy dose of mythic intrigue. The story unfolds in a cursed kingdom where demonic beings known as Magens suddenly appear, kidnapping the princess and throwing the realm into chaos. Rather than one linear plotline, it offers multiple perspectives. You choose among several protagonists, each with their own motives and overlapping campaigns. The branching narratives and morally gray choices create a layered world where alliances shift and no hero is entirely pure. Gameplay draws comparisons to Final Fantasy Tactics or Disgaea, but with a sinister twist. Battles take place on isometric grids, where careful positioning and turn order planning are crucial. Instead of simply defeating enemies, you can also attempt to capture Magen during combat. Captured demons can be sold for resources or purified and turned into usable equipment, adding a risk-reward mechanic that keeps every encounter tense. Atmosphere is where Eternal Poison truly stands apart. The Gothic art style leans into dark fairy tale imagery, all shadowy castles and twisted creatures. The somber soundtrack heightens the sense of foreboding, while elegant character portraits give even minor NPCs a memorable presence. Its pace, however, can be slow. Long load times, deliberate combat, and punishing difficulty require patience. The multiple campaigns, while rewarding, demand significant time investment to see the full picture. Yet for players who appreciate methodical tactics and rich, brooding world building, Eternal Poison remains a hidden PS2 treasure.
Let's get going.
When Steambot Chronicles arrived in 2005, it quietly delivered one of the PlayStation 2's most charmingly offbeat RPG sandboxes. This casual adventure blends open-world exploration, slice-of-life storytelling, and mech customization into something that feels part RPG, part life simulator, and part rhythm game, all wrapped in a lighthearted steampunk setting. Instead of a world-ending crisis, the game invites you to simply live in it, shaping your path however you choose. The story unfolds based on your choices. You can stick with the band, pursue side jobs, or even flirt with questionable morality by joining a gang. Dialogue options and branching missions allow for surprising freedom, encouraging you to roleplay a personality rather than follow a fixed script. The standout feature is the Trot Mobile, a customizable, steam-powered mech that acts as both transportation and combat vehicle. You can swap out legs, arms, weapons, and decorative flourishes, then drive it across the countryside or into clunky but entertaining battles. Beyond combat, the game offers a delightful array of side activities, playing in the band complete with rhythm game sequences, running deliveries, mining, trading goods, or simply exploring towns and chatting with NPCs who have their own routines and quirks. Its relaxed pacing and lack of a central save-the-world quest threw off some. Controls can feel unwieldy, visuals are modest, and combat never reaches the complexity of dedicated action titles. But those quirks give it its personality. It's more about immersion than urgency, inviting you to meander, experiment, and make small choices that define Vanilla's life. In retrospect, it's easy to see why Steambot Chronicles has gained cult status. It had the freedom of later open-world RPGs and life sims, offering a cozy, player-driven adventure years before Sandbox became a genre buzzword.
Everyone else does. You're vanilla, right?
Released in 2001 by Atlas and developed by Cattle Call, Suguni Atonement is a short, strange RPG that feels like a spiritual experiment. Instead of a sprawling quest to save the world, it focuses on a single soul seeking redemption. You play as Lies, a wandering mercenary who steals a sacred relic and is punished by having his spirit separated from his body. To earn forgiveness, he must inhabit other people's bodies and help them resolve their personal struggles. It's an unusual premise that gives the game a quiet, intimate flavor rarely seen in RPGs of the era. Rather than controlling one party throughout, you temporarily possess different characters, fishermen, soldiers, townsfolk, each with their own abilities and combat styles. Every possession becomes a self-contained story, letting you experience multiple perspectives within a single overarching narrative. This mechanic keeps the adventure fresh, as you constantly adapt to new skills and playstyles instead of grinding a single build. Combat uses a straightforward real-time with pause system, where timing and positioning matter more than complex menus. The smaller scale and limited length. Most playthroughs take around 15 hours, allow the game to focus on personal tales of regret, love, and sacrifice rather than epic battles against world-ending villains. The result is surprisingly emotional. You're not saving the planet, you're helping ordinary people heal. The presentation adds to the melancholy tone. Soft, ambient music underscores muted, atmospheric visuals that give the game a contemplative feel. While the environments can appear sparse and the controls slightly stiff, the mood of quiet reflection stands out. Because it's brief and unconventional, this game never found a wide audience. Many players looking for a grand adventure overlooked it entirely. An understated RPG that proves small stories can leave a lasting mark.